Hi, good afternoon. Welcome very much, everyone. Thanks for joining our live stream. It's the second one of these that we've done, adapting to the new way of things and how events are going. And today we really wanted to focus on some of the positives and, given the situation that we're all in, kind of really focusing on, what's possible and what we practically can do. And I was having a chat with Amir. He's coming on and presenting for us today, and the work at DreamLab is really interesting. So Amir's at Transpire, he's the UX director at Transpire, it's a technology consultancy, and they did a project with the Vodafone Foundation called DreamLab. And I remember this coming out a couple of years ago, all around cancer research, and they've now added in some projects around. So essentially, DreamLab helps to process data using the power of our smartphones, because all of our phones have a lot of processing power, and while we're asleep a lot of that goes to waste, and this app kind of works in the background. Amir will chat through it a bit more on how it all works, but it's a great project that I think a lot of people can get behind and help support some of the research that's going on. I do, as before, want to make this stream interactive, so there's the YouTube chat feature, so please leave comments. Feel free to introduce yourself, say who you are, where you're watching, and just ask questions throughout, because we want to make it interactive. So any thoughts or things that you have, just write them down in the chat, and then we'll come through to the questions a bit later on. We're also recording today, so if you can't join us live, then you can catch up and watch on YouTube will be available. And we'll also have a breakout session for anyone who's free afterwards on Zoom. The details are in your inbox, or you can check down the description and see you'll receive an email with the registration link and the password over on Zoom. Last time it worked quite well, and it was nice to see some faces and reach out and speak to each other, because that's what's quite difficult on some of these virtual events, is to know who's on the other end but behind the computer, while also presenting and having everyone connected. So yeah, feel free to connect with us in the chat, leave some comments. It should be really good. So I'm now going to add Amir into the stream. We'll just have a bit of a chat. Hey Amir, how are you doing? Let's unmute you.
From sunny, cold, and dark down under.
Oh yeah, I know it's super late in the evening for you. I really appreciate that you stayed up so we can run this at lunchtime, so it kind of works for UK time. And I know you mentioned before that you used to live in London, or you're around London.
Yeah,
before.
I did. Yeah, I spent 3 years back in 2000 to 2003, sort of leading a bunch of designers and content writers for a technology consultancy, or company, I should say. And then that company got bought out by Autodesk. So hopefully many people know who Autodesk is. They build, CAD software, and it was good times. I didn't get closure. I was forced to come back for work, but I've got many friends still in the UK, especially in London. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And how's things going in Melbourne at the minute? What's the latest? Are you allowed out? How's kind of lockdown life going?
No, let's say we've been locked down for 6 weeks now. Combine that with homeschooling makes it very challenging for us. Look, I think the government has put some mandates in terms of what we can and can't do. Exercise, fine. Essential shopping, fine. If you're employed or a staff in essential services, that's okay. But trying to keep your social distance, and they're actually like police who drive around, and when they look at people who are more than two, or there's a sort of gathering of crowd, that's when the fines come out. So they're hitting it hard, which I think is not a bad thing to do, to be honest. And I'm sure people have got different opinions, but we've managed to keep that curve reasonably flat. And I think every 2 weeks there's an announcement by both state government here in Australia and the federal government in terms of what the next plan of action is. But a lot of companies are taking that as a guide only, by being quite pragmatic and at the same time frugal in terms of what they think they should do to keep the employees and clients safe. So
yeah, I think we're all listening out for those announcements.
yeah.
Definitely. Great. I'm going to add in your deck. I'll stay on the top corner just so you know that I'm here. So if you have any questions or any problems, or nothing's working, then you know that I'm around. I'll be looking on the chat as well, and picking out some questions for us. So yeah, your deck's up on the screen. So yeah, if you want to take it away.
Fantastic. Well, again, thanks a lot, Brett, and thanks to people at Melbourne UX London who want to hear someone from down under talk about this amazing app. I thought in the time that I've got, I'll break down the talk into a couple of key sections. One is introduce myself and talk about my background, so you have some context. Then I'll talk about Transpire quickly and what we do, the type of work that we do. Then jump into and talk about the app itself. Brett's given a good summary, but I'll play a couple of short videos. And then, if possible, maybe I'll share this screen, and I'll share my mobile phone so you can see a sort of demo of the app if you don't have it on your phone already. And then I'll jump back into the deck, talk about some interesting stats. And then obviously, that's what we're all here for, right? The COVID-19, to talk about, the response of DreamLab, Vodafone, and Transpire in terms of what we've done with this application. And then I'm going to open up to Q&A by all means, ask questions on the way. And hopefully you'll learn some good stuff. And I'm hoping at the end of this talk, everybody's downloaded this app and we should see a bit of a spike up in terms of downloads. So now tell me, Brett, if you see me jump to the next screen.
Yep, that's working. All good.
Okay, fantastic. So my name is Amir Ansari. I'm the Director of User Experience. My background is an industrial designer with an honours degree, as many UX designers do that don't come from a background of user experience because, well, in Australia anyway, there is no such formal qualifications. We're still behind the 8 ball in terms of, getting tertiary institutions to provide this accreditation. But there's a couple of small institutions that do this 10-week rapid education of just an overview. But look, I've been practicing user experience before it was called user experience for over 20 years, and then slowly moved into digital. I've spent the past 15 years building design practices within digital technology consultancies and agencies. So I started as a designer within an agency, but realized very quickly that we need to influence the end product. So it made very much sense for me to sort of join the technology arm of businesses so we can see that product come to fruition. And for the past, as I said, 15 years, been leading and managing designers, researchers, and I sit within the leadership team of Transpire, so I've helped work on the business as well. Transpire, we're a technology consultancy. Transform and inspire, that's where the name came from. Prior to the name Transpire, we were actually called B2 Cloud about 3.5 years ago. And that's, 10 years ago when the company started, cloud had a different meaning to what it does now. And that has a very specific meaning around, cloud services, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google, cloud platform and so forth. So we thought it's a good idea for us to sort of rebrand ourselves. And, our goal is to create digital products and experiences that matter and, change people's lives. We're based in Melbourne, Australia, and we're about 50 consultants, ranging from, iOS and Android developers, back-end engineers, front-end web engineers, UX designers and researchers, project managers, testers and quality assurance. And, I'm also helping to run part of our strategy services as well. Some of our values. So, they hopefully resonate with every one of you. They're founded on, just like human centricity as well. So we like to create with empathy. And our goal is to help transform our clients' world and inspire them to do great things. Obviously, we want to make an impact, DreamLab application being a perfect example. We're all about the people. So we like to be together and, work as a team. And obviously challenge the status quo, especially from my client's perspective. So we want to be bold and, aspire to do intelligent things, but take, measured risks. Look, this is some of our awards that, just to give you a bit of, confidence that we are credible in terms of what we're, talking about both user experience and mobile applications, but I'm not going to hop on this screen. So I thought what I could do is play a couple of short videos which you can actually find on the Vodafone Australia website with a link down the bottom. It'll give you quite a simplified view and explanation of what the application does. And if technology is our friend this evening or lunchtime where you are, hopefully I'll be able to sort of demonstrate the app working on my phone so you've got some more context. So here we go. This is the first one.
Cancer affects so many of the people we love. But what if you could help by speeding up cancer research, and all while you sleep? Researchers need supercomputers to crunch their complex data. That's where you and the DreamLab app can come in. DreamLab harnesses your phone's processing power to create a virtual supercomputer to help fight cancer. Simply download the app, choose which project you'd like to support, and how much data you'd like to contribute on mobile or Wi-Fi. And when your phone is on charge, the app will start calculating data to help solve cancer research. Already DreamLab users are crunching data in half the time, and the more people who use the app, the faster it works. Download DreamLab and help solve cancer while you sleep.
Right, so hopefully that gives you quite a good explanation of what the application does. Before I play the second video, it's probably worth taking a step back and talking about the history behind the app and how it evolved. So Vodafone Foundation is, I guess, the philanthropic arm of Vodafone based in Australia. And they were partnering with Garvan Institute, the logo at the top. They're a medical research organisation in Australia. And they had a challenge. So cancer researchers, right? They're scientists. They're not IT geeks. They're not, technical in terms of software engineering. And they have a huge need for supercomputing. If you think about it, I'm just going to roll out some stats. Cancer is a disease of the DNA, and understanding and analyzing, the human genome is, crucial to transforming cancer treatment, right, and personalizing it for the individual. So we talk about personalized medicine. If you think about it, each genome sequence generates about 500 gigabytes of data, right? That's a huge quantity of data. Now, if we need to do that for, many genomes, to better understand, how cancer is, evolving and what sort of treatment we need to do, that's a lot of crunching of data. And if you think about it, again, these, cancer institutions and research institutions, they don't have the capacity, or both commercially, financially, the capacity or capability to manage supercomputers. So they had a bit of a problem. And they sort of worked with Amazon Web Services, and through Amazon Web Services, they introduced us. And we thought to ourselves, well, how do we solve this problem? And, it's a beautiful story, right? Every one of you has a phone, we call it a smartphone, but it's now just a standard phone, which you plug in every night and you go to bed and you sleep for 6 hours. And this phone just stays idle. Maybe updates the temperature, maybe counts down on your alarm clock, maybe download some of your Facebook feeds ready for you to consume it first thing in the morning. But really, that that percentage of power it needs to do those things are minuscule, right? And your phone's charging, so battery is at its optimum level. If you can imagine hundreds, thousands, millions of people, if they can just donate a little bit of their processing power on their phone while they sleep, so they don't need it, then you've got yourself an amazing supercomputer. So the idea behind the app was, well, what if we work with these cancer institutions, get them to break down their, genome sequencing and crunching into sort of mathematical problems. We can put it up on the Amazon Web Services. Each client or each mobile app downloads a component or like a little bit of that problem, crunches it while you sleep. You tell it how much data you want to donate. Obviously, it's Wi-Fi. Most homes now have unlimited Wi-Fi. If you're with Vodafone, it's untethered or unmuted, I should say, so it's free. But you can still choose if you're on a SIM how much data you're willing to give it. And then once it sort of crunches and processes that bit of data, it pushes it back onto the web. And I'll show a demo in just a second. And I'm happy to take questions as well. I'll play the COVID-19 video now just because I've got it here, but I will sort of then backtrack into the app and demo again, and then we can go back and talk about COVID-19. So here we go.
Join the Dream Team today and help fight COVID-19 by using the DreamLab app. Once you're in the app, tap Projects, find the project called Corona AI, and tap Select. You can tap the entire card to find out more about the research. And that's it. DreamLab will use your phone's processing power to help find treatments for COVID-19, together with the Imperial College London. Thanks for being a part of the Dream Team.
So now that you've seen this, let's see if we can get the tech to work. So I'm just going to stop my screen and my presentation, I should say, and I'm going to share my phone, application window, share. So hopefully you see my phone, but maybe you can confirm that people can. Yeah.
Unmute myself. Yep, I can see your phone. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's see if this works. That might be a bit frozen. So as you know, tech never seems to work when you want it to work.
It's that moment, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
The pressure
okay, so yeah. So we can see that now, right? So
yeah.
Most users, when they install the app for the first time, will go through some sort of onboarding. This is where we call the lab. This is where, you know, you're, in effect, you stay while you're sleeping. As you can see, there's a call to action to power DreamLab. So, you know, if I power DreamLab, you see a nice little cute animation that's almost like the heartbeat of the app that gives you a sense that you're, you know, it's doing something, and it starts counting down and highlighting the calculations you've done. Well, that's, you know, we talk about the projects. So, you know, there's a list of projects and it's always being added. I'll talk about how much, you know, globally where it's up to, and you can see a status of each project as to how much it's been completed. As you can tell, I am, you know, powering the Corona AI app, which is selected. You know, contributions talks about my total contributions. Now, obviously, I've been powering more than 49 days. The challenge is one of the challenges I'll talk about is that the fact that at the moment the app is anonymous to reduce the friction means we're not capturing, you know, profiles and registrations and accounts. So if I happen to reset my phone, do a factory reset or get a new one, obviously that number goes back to 0. But I'll talk about how we're resolving that. But, you know, I've made 21,000 calculations for this project. Overall, the project is at 2.78%. So, you know, it's quite a bit of processing required to get to that 100%. But it makes you feel good. You know you're doing something without having to do much. News, obviously, you can go and read about some of the things that Vodafone Foundation Australia is pumping out, and some of the partners. And then lastly, you know, in the settings where, for example, you can choose how much data you're willing to let go. As you can see from my Wi-Fi, it's unlimited. For my mobile data, I've maxed out because obviously it's I've got more than 500 megabytes per month to use up. So, you know, and I'll leave that crunching, but I'll disconnect. I will stop my sharing, stop sharing, and I'll reshare the Prezzo. Chrome tab, audio. Okay. So hopefully you can see the screen again.
Yeah, that looks good to me.
Fantastic. Okay. Some interesting numbers here. So, you know, and some of these stats are a little bit old because we probably haven't been as good as collecting more stats to sort of help, you know, for PR purposes or really promote the application. But, you know, all the smartphones in Australia have about 90 times the power of a supercomputer. And we're Australia, our population is tiny compared to the UK and the globe, right? So imagine the amount of supercomputers globally we can have when people are just asleep. And the beauty is that, you know, with the different time zones, and in a given, you know, time, there's, you know, millions of people who could potentially be powering DreamLab. And obviously, you know, we're very proud on the App Store, Apple App Store. It's at 4.8%, 4.8 stars, which is great. $100,000 a year savings in terms of what we've done for Garvan Institute, and that was the stats from 2017. I'm sure that numbers are much higher now. So when you think about research organizations, they often have to get grants or have limited funding. So anything we can do to also help them commercially is a win-win for us. I'm sure bottom left, we've done more than 100 million calculations. I'm sure that's much larger. The app is currently available in 10 countries, but over the next 2 to 3 months, it's actually being rolled out to another, total of 18, so another 8 countries. I think there's about 4 or 5 different languages that the application's been translated into as well, which itself has been fun, but also a challenge from a design perspective. And 48% of the data has been processed in half the time compared to if Garvan Institute was doing it in-house. So there's some really great stories that we're really proud of, but obviously it's been in partnership with Vodafone, Garvan, Imperial College, all the research institutions globally, as well as Amazon Web Services. So the story about COVID-19, as everybody appreciates, when the pandemic hit, many organizations thought, well, hey, this is going to impact us. And obviously the first thing that research institutions have done is go, well, how can we help solve this problem? So this is where Imperial College comes in. Obviously, they're already a partner in terms of some of the projects they've got on the applications. But, they worked with Vodafone and said, hey, listen, we're going to pivot. Yes, we focus on cancer most of the time, but we're going to pivot and we're going to try and help solve the COVID-19 problem. So they already have a sort of algorithms in the applications, and I'll probably talk through some of the technical aspects of the app, even though I'm not very technical myself. Basically, the way it works, the research organizations require 3 things. They need data, they need an algorithm or way for the data to be crunched, and I guess they've got some technical requirements in terms of how the app needs to work. So the way we typically work is we work with the cancer institutions and, or I guess any institution who wants to play a part in this platform. We give them some framework in terms of how we need the data and what format we need it in. They often give us the algorithm. The algorithm typically runs on the client side on the app, and the data resides on the cloud. And so, with Imperial College, they already had an algorithm, and they were using the exact same algorithm as one of the other projects, which meant we didn't need to do a major release. That's probably one of the beautiful things. So we managed to upload and get the Corona AI project going in 2.5 weeks, which is pretty impressive. If we had to do a whole new algorithm, then obviously you'd have to go through App Store and Play Store, submissions. You probably have to do some major testing. Whereas this way, it was pretty much all, back end and client side, mathematical testing, which allowed us to be able to, spin this up and pivot this really quickly and get it out in the market. I don't have any stats at the moment, but there's been a huge number of downloads so far already. And as you can see, I think on my phone, we've processed about 2.3 or 2.7% of that project, which is fantastic to hear. Probably last slide I'll talk about is some of the challenges and some of the things we've resolved. But one of the challenges of this application is it's quite a passive app. You plug it in, and that's it. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to help excite users. And the first app that was released was only for Android, and probably going back before my time at Transpire, about 4 to 5 years ago. It probably looked a bit dated by the time I started, and it probably didn't help to what's the right word? Give that good feeling for people to feel like, oh, this is an app that I should sort of jump in and use. So one of the things we did was we refreshed it. We looked at the new design patterns for iOS and Android, and we sort of brought it to life a little bit. One of the other challenges that the application had was the units of measure, as you would have seen, wasn't hours actually, but was calculations. And when we did rounds and rounds of user research, and we were trying to understand if users understood what was happening, often we'd get the question of, well, what's a calculation? Do I see it? Is it like minuses and pluses and zeros and ones? How big is a calculation? And so there was a lot of confusion and not necessarily mistrust, but lack of understanding of what is it really doing. So one of our, I guess, biggest wins was we questioned the need to even tell people that there's a thing called a calculation as a unit. Whereas, ideally, number of minutes and hours you've timed is probably a lot more relevant, and it's units that people understand. The other benefit of that is that, and depending on your phone and how modern it is, obviously the processor works faster or slower. So, Brett and I could be processing the same project. He's got a Pixel 2, maybe I've got a Pixel 3 or an iPhone X or whatever. And But but in an hour's time, we would have done different calculations. So, and not that people will often be comparing themselves, but I used to do it with my wife, and I go, "Oh, you've only processed 2 calculations. I've already done 10." And that ambiguity led people to sort of feel a bit of distrust in the application. Go, well, what is it doing? Why is mine slower than yours? So by having a generic unit, which is time, it felt a lot fairer. We still show the calculations, but it's a secondary from a design perspective, and we've sort of made more prominent the minutes and hours. The next one was the powering status. So in the lab, or in the dashboard, initially I think we had something very subtle in terms of the fact that app's working. Again, sure, you plug your phone in and go to sleep. It's not often you want to get up in the middle of the night and go, what is it doing? But we felt like we need to communicate to users more effectively that no, rest assured your app is crunching, it's all good. go to sleep and have a good dream. So hence you saw in my demo of our phone, we decided to put a more prominent animation. And we came up with all the characters, the scientists, the people with the lab coats, the beakers, the Bunsen burner, and so forth, to give the real sense this is a scientific thing that you're doing as a non-scientist. So you should be proud of yourself. With that in mind, we still have a couple of challenges. Apple and iOS, I wouldn't say it's a hardware limitation, but it's hardware restriction that Apple has put in, which is all about background processing. So with Android operating systems, I'm plugged in, the phone's sleeping at the moment. I might have, Facebook up, but DreamLab is working in the background. Unfortunately, Apple and the way they've built the architecture, or the limitation the restrictions they've provided, potentially to help keep battery life healthy and higher, they don't allow background processing to take place, so under very strict circumstances. So that's still a challenge for us. So, and it became a design challenge. So when we talk about user experiences, with DreamLab app on the Android, I just plug it in and I just go to bed. Unfortunately, with iOS, the user needs to plug it in, launch the DreamLab app, and keep that in front, and then put the phone down. So trying to communicate to an end user, someone who's potentially not very tech savvy, has its design challenges. So if you have to have an iOS and Android phone, you'll see a slightly different onboarding process, and you see some different communication in terms of what you need to do if you've got an iPhone. And the last one is user engagement and reminders. So as I said, it's a passive app, right? Again, for Android, it's less of an issue if you plug it in. But even for both Android and iPhone, you might forget. You might have killed the app and forgotten to launch it. And because you don't do much, it is a bit of a challenge for us to try and keep engagement up. There's lost opportunity for people to be processing when they plug their phone in. So a couple of things we're thinking about is, well, how do we gamify? How do we create some challenges so that, if I'm working against my wife or some of my colleagues, or maybe we get together as a group and we compete against another city or another state or even another country, how do we sort of get that level of, community-based feel to the application, so people feel more motivated to sort of jump in. So things about potentially leaderboards, reminders and better notifications are some of the things we're talking about. Pushing, doing push notifications maybe after a certain number of times when someone's plugged their phone in. So these are some of the things that we're thinking about from a design challenge that we still need to solve. But we know we've got, plenty of life left in terms of the sort of things that we need to do for this application. Look, that's probably in a nutshell the sort of things that I want to cover off. I prefer more Q&A. So unless there's any objections by Brett or anybody else, I'm happy to call it a pause here and open it up for people to ask as many technical or non-technical questions as possible.
Awesome. I've been keeping an eye on some of the questions coming in. There's nothing too technical, so I think you're safe today, unless anyone wants to chuck one in now to challenge you. I just wanted to kick one off, and I don't know if you have any details on kind of your overall user base, and it sort of ties into one of the questions actually which Jennifer asked, which was around spreading. How do you spread awareness for the app? So I just add that question in. So it would be interesting to know kind of the number of users. I think it's such a great project, and it's almost a question of why not. I mean, I think initially when I was looking into it, you're kind of a bit worried, oh, can this read everything on my phone, and kind of the privacy concerns. But actually, how it runs, it doesn't need access. It's really straightforward and so simple to use. And I'm on Pixel 4 Android, so for me, it's automatically works in the evening at night, which is quite nice. But yeah, it'd be good to know if you about the kind of user base and the adoption, and then what's been happening to help spread awareness.
Yeah, no, great question, Jennifer. When we first launched the Android app, we kept it quite low key. Now, I think that maybe there was some PR work done by Vodafone Australia, but we knew at the time, before there was a 50-50 split between Android and iOS, adoption. Obviously, iPhone had come out first, but because the app didn't exist on the iPhone, because of that background restriction, that background processing, I think Vodafone wanted to keep it low key. When we decided that, well, no, we can solve the problem through better onboarding and communication, and we launched the iOS app. I think we launched it either simultaneously or in Australia, and then very quickly in the UK. And so there was a lot of PR done by Vodafone. So, and I don't know the actor's name, but the Black British actor from Star Wars, he was recruited to do some ads on TV, which is quite humorous. And you can probably Google it and look at it. But there's a lot of PR done. And then soon after, when we decided, well, we need to do a global rollout. Well, no, we need to do a global rollout. We can do a global rollout. I think, again, Vodafone took it upon themselves to do a lot more communication. From a design perspective, obviously, there's a lot that can be done. That social proofing as a concept to go, hey, I've got it, you should get it too, or fear of missing out. It's probably some of the things that we could potentially think about using in the application to get people to sort of invite each other. But one of the things, again, that has currently been discussed is the notion that what Vodafone never wanted to do was to collect people's individual data, manage their profiles, Jennifer's, first name, surname, maybe email address, or maybe phone number. And they just didn't want to do that. And potentially they still don't want to, right? Because with that comes a lot of responsibility. But we've been talking about maybe other ways of logging in. Nothing's promised, but, obviously there's different ways of logging in through, social platforms and things like that. So once I think we can have this concept of a user and a profile, then I think we can then use the community to spread that awareness. Whereas at the moment, it's probably a lot more the responsibility on us as app development and design company, also Vodafone themselves, to do a lot more traditional advertising campaigns.
Great, that's a really good answer. And then also kind of following on, I just wanted to bring this one up next. So Susie asked about how the idea was explained to the end user. I mean, I guess a lot of that was done, so it was developed for Vodafone Foundation, right? So that was kind of part of their marketing campaign. I think they have done quite a good job actually at keeping it simple, because it is a bit of a complicated thing, kind of knowing how it all works and what's going to happen. So I'm just going to add your thank you back up. So yeah, do you know about how it all works? If there's any doubt as well, because I think that is a valid point actually, because it's kind of, what are the cons?
Great question, Susie. I like your comment around there's no such thing as a free lunch. Really good point. So we started doing, this traditional usability and user testing quite early on in the application, and right down from getting the user to go to the App Store and look at the explanation of the app and look at some of the screenshots. And then I think at the time, even Vodafone had a video done by the digital advertising agency about explaining the applications. And we asked users, well, what do you think is happening? And we learned a bit of the languages around crunching your data. You connect to the cloud. These were raising some alarm bells for users. Well, hang on a second, my phone's going to the cloud. So what else are you sucking from my phone and sending to the cloud? And data's being crunched. What's the definition of data? Calculations. What's that got to do with science? So there's a lot of and most of the label and the concepts that people didn't understand. So we did numerous rounds, and I think almost like every 2 to 3 weeks we were doing usability testing with 5 users, just playing with the words, playing with the language, playing with the onboarding. asking the user about, how would you, if you have to explain to your partner, how would you power DreamLab? See if they understood, well, they're going to plug the phone in, make sure it's charged, they're going to launch the app, then they're going to pick a project, usually just once, and then, press play or power. The word power, I remember, somebody said, well, what does it mean by power? My phone's already powered, so what am I doing? So I think we changed, power to, run the session or, run DreamLab. So, I guess the short answer to your question is through lots and lots of usability testing, user testing, getting that customer or consumer feedback and feeding that back into the design process.
Great. I think another question we had come through was from Asan about how we might convince people who put their phones on airplane mode at night, or if we're worried about having the phone close to our heads kind of while we're sleeping. So those who don't have their phone kind of running in the background, was there any anything that you know of to try and convince those people or change user behavior?
Yeah, Asan, that's actually, that's one of our challenges, right? It's at the moment, we don't collect enough data in terms of how many users are powering at any given point in time, because obviously, users are anonymous, but that's always a challenge, right? It's, even just not talking about airplane mode, when we go to bed, my wife's got an iPhone, I'm an Android phone, so I go, oh, don't forget DreamLab. And that's a design challenge, right? How do we remind, the iPhone user to launch the app? We had ideas such as putting little DreamLab stickers on your phone cable. So as soon as you plug your phone, you're about to put your bed, the little sticker reminds you, oh yeah, DreamLab. But to the airplane mode, but that's user behavior, right? And so I think it comes down to a lot more communication. And, I'm one of those people that do care about, RF radiation. And so, I do keep my phone at a bit more distance, but my daughter, I make sure the phone's quite away from her face. But look, that's a challenge that we may never be able to solve, because we don't have control over, people's airplane mode and various other, that's the same design challenge people have with Bluetooth and Bluetooth beacons, right? If people turn their Bluetooth off, and you're at a stadium where you could take advantage of the beacons to sort of push you, rewards and discounts. If your Bluetooth is off, the app's not going to be able to force you to turn it back on. So it comes down to a lot of little nudges, a lot of reminders. We talk about how often should we send a push notification to a customer or to an end user. Do we want to force, certain settings? Probably not, but it's a really good question, and I necessarily don't have an answer for it now, but I think it's something that I'm sure is probably on the backlog for people to think about. Good one.
Yeah, well, awesome. And also just touching on Bluetooth, so a question I'm really interested in at the minute. So slightly off topic, but with the contact tracing apps that are happening at the moment with governments wanting to monitor who we're connecting with and to try and help prevent the spread of COVID, a lot of that relies on Bluetooth all running in the background, and it's a similar problem what I've just read today. So our government, the UK government, they went ahead with their own development of the app and are actually potentially backtracking a little bit now to try and join in with the Google and Apple projects which are being rolled out wider, but that's using the native parts of the phone rather than having an app, because the issue with, I guess, almost essentially being third party is that it's not running Bluetooth natively, and what they're finding with the trials going on is that the iOS is actually relying on Android users to pass by to kind of trigger the Bluetooth to start working again. So unless it's kind of built in natively, there's a that is a design challenge. So I don't know if it just resonates with kind of what you were just saying. So I don't know if you had any thoughts, I guess, for that for a major project that going native is kind of the best way.
It's a really good one. Look, we have strong partnerships with both Google and Apple. And, as you were talking about, I was looking at my phone where the COVID Safe app, which is Australian government's a contact tracing app, it says it's a constant push notification that says, COVID Safe is scanning to keep you safe. Restart your phone if this notification disappears. And for a lot of people, my mum, if a notification disappeared, she won't know what a notification is, and she probably won't even know what the name of the application is to relaunch it. So absolutely, these are design. It's a hard one. It's a design challenge that could have been made much easier if hardware manufacturers would sort of play ball, if that makes sense, or sort of worked a bit together, or there was a bit more of a standard. with things such as a contact tracing app, it might get to a point where governments mandate. And I read recently, I think that government is working with airlines to go, if you wanted to now do air travel, the airline will have to check that you've got your contact tracing app on before you actually get into the cabin. So maybe we're going to get to a point where this becomes, these sort of things become a mandate. Now, obviously, solving cancer or COVID-19, it probably doesn't have the level of COVID-19 in DreamLab doesn't have that same level of importance as COVID-19 and spreading the virus. So it's definitely a problem or a challenge that may get solved, and it may not. Look, I don't know what the target is for Vodafone in terms of number of users, but we know with the numbers and the story behind DreamLab, hopefully it's enough to warrant people to really question, maybe I don't put it on airplane mode, but maybe I'll just kill all the applications on DreamLab, or maybe I'll just put my phone, over there at a bit of a distance. It is a very much a human behavior challenge that we are looking into, and I'm sure over the next coming months, especially with COVID-19 and the contact tracing app, maybe consumers become a little bit more tech savvy in terms of what their phone is doing, maybe for good, or maybe they'll become even more scared of, well, hang on, my phone is now open to anybody, so I'm going to turn everything off. And that'll be a sad time for, I think, a lot of companies. But yeah, it's an interesting challenge.
It's definitely interesting, and all of the background, because there's so much that our phones are doing constantly in the background to serve these notifications and alerts and different things to us. And I remember kind of the tech, even a couple of months ago, it was more going towards like a state of calm, and a lot of the companies were designing to try and reduce the stress and the anxiety. And now we're almost kind of not quite reversing that, but kind of wanting to utilize that and what we can do more, because it is such a powerful tool we have. But like you say, having the challenging user behavior and informing users as well is a huge. There's so much to do. There's one final question I just wanted to bring up, which going back to Hassan, so he was asking about the kind of partnership with Vodafone, if that's ongoing, and what the funding model is for DreamLabs. I'm not sure if that's a question more for Vodafone rather than for yourself, or if that's anything you're able to touch on.
Yeah, look, I don't know the commercial details, but we are a technology partner for Vodafone Australia. So we've been engaged and we've been building that software over the last 4 to 5 years, as a professional services. I know, Amazon Web Services as well, AWS, they've probably got some agreements in terms of other credits or discounts or, PR or things like that with Vodafone. In terms of the cancer or the institutions that are providing those research problems, I think, again, I don't think there's any, maybe there's some funding that Vodafone Foundation passed through. I'm really not sure, but we know that overall, the amount of money we're saving these cancer institutions, they're probably willing to, expend a bit of effort to get their data ready to the point that we can then, upload it into our system. And look, we've had practice now, right? We've got numerous projects. We've had a global rollout. So we've now have quite a streamlined, like a framework to onboard different organizations. So hopefully the effort from them is reasonably minimal, because they'll have to have those, calculations set up ready to go into a supercomputer. We'll just grab it and we'll chuck it into the cloud. So that's probably as much as I can answer there, Hassan. It's probably something for Vodafone, as you said, Brett. Yeah. Good point.
Awesome. I think that's the end of all of our questions, and I just wanted to say thank you so much, Amir, for staying up late. I know with the time zones we kind of message each other. You're kind of early on in the day, and I'm in the evening. But I mean, it's great that we're able to make this work, and to hear, so it's a fantastic project, and something that's not really being talked about that much at the moment. So hopefully, for those that are watching and on our channels, we can kind of help spread that message. It's such an easy thing to be able to do. I mean, you download it and it just runs itself. So
because what it's done, yeah. I guess our last point about the changing that human behavior to power things up. There's always a risk and reward for humans, right? You hear stories where someone's talking to a friend about, I don't know, pineapples, and then they jump back onto their computer and Facebook's got pineapple advertising on the screen, right? And for a quick 5 seconds, people get freaked out. Oh my God, Facebook was listening to me. And then 5 minutes later, they're on Facebook. So there's a risk versus reward, right? As humans, we're creatures of habit. So I think we're going to get to a point where hopefully the fear behind, allowing your phone processing to be used, and if perhaps we do good enough comms, we'll get to a point where people will feel safe to be able to allow apps like these or contact tracing apps to work for the benefit of humankind. So fingers crossed, and I'm hoping again people who've been listening today. Go download the app. It's very simple and safe, and tell all your friends, and hopefully we can solve this pandemic together.
Awesome. Once again, thanks so much, Amir. Really, really great deck, and I love the videos, and I love that we got the phone working as well. I'm just gonna, I know, it was awesome. Like, that's what you want to see. What is the mobile? What is the product? What does it look like? So yeah, no, that's awesome. But yeah, no, thanks so much. And then this talk is available, so those who want to watch it, we can share the link around. It's up on YouTube. We're now just going to hand over to Adrian. He's going to talk about a upcoming webinar tonight that those who are watching might be interested in. So thanks so much again, Amir. And I'll hand over to Adrian. I'll just add you in.
Yeah.
Great, you're live.
I'm live. Great. Good afternoon, guys. Once again, that was a great talk by Amir. I'm sure we've all valued more and more the power of UX and apps in the role in society today. Great. So if you guys don't know me, good afternoon. My name is Adrian. I am the head of growth and partnerships of UX Academy. So we are a very successful training organization that's been running for over 3 years now. And what it is that we actually do UX design courses in the evenings. And what makes it popular is that people are able to base it around their weekly schedule. So it's quite convenient considering the times that we're in. And now recently we've actually taken our courses online. So even more beneficial for the times that we're in. Just to mention, we actually are doing a webinar tonight, like a taster session for those who are interested in our upcoming course of voice design, also known as conversational design, which will be taking place at the end of May. So tonight we're doing a webinar based around voice design. This is a great opportunity for you to learn what it means to be a voice user experience designer or voice user interface designer. The presentation is suitable for anyone who wants to learn how to build skills for Alexa or any other voice activated device. So if you're interested in signing up, please do visit the link, rebrand.ly/voice webinar May, and you can sign up straight away. Once again, tonight at 6 p.m. If you're interested or you want further details, feel free to reach out to me or Brett, or I'm sure you'll hear more details from Brett as well. So that's all from me today, and I'm going to hand over back to Brett for the rest of the session. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Adrian. We're literally just wrapping up now, and then so the final part of today we want to do a networking, and I know some people are already over on Zoom, and I think Adrian's going to join us over on there as well. So yeah, we'll head on over to Zoom, have a chat, get to know each other, and yeah, thanks very much for watching the stream today. And oh, just to say, so we're also planning, so next week we'll send the details out. We're going to be running our next virtual meetup around the topic of well-being, and our speakers, we have the one of the creative directors at Accenture, who's going to be talking about how they're supporting their teams working remotely. And then we'll also have one of the leading recruitment figures in the recruitment industry, who's set up his own agency, and he's going to be speaking around tips for finding work or changing work, or navigating the complexities of work throughout this period. So that's likely to happen next Thursday lunchtime, and we'll send the details out soon. But yeah, thanks very much again for joining us, everyone, and look forward to seeing you on the next one.